I have this dumb idea of starting a podcast called Breathing Heavily. And it's just a super short episode every week where I'm just like, well, that was episode number 1. See you guys next week.
But if you could do it, you need to interview somebody just while they're talking.
But I don't want it to be an interview. I just want it to be literally just breathing heavy for maybe 10 seconds to a minute.
No. Just 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So that people go back and gonna be like, did I miss? It's not downloading. The whole thing didn't download.
And it'll just you'll be 400 episodes deep and people are like, have you guys heard of that fucking heavy breathing one? It's ridiculous.
No, but I fell asleep on episode 4. That's great. I try to get through this series every night.
I binge listened walking to my car.
Yeah.
I binge listen to that thing all the
Welcome to Waiting to Drive, the most entertaining, least informative art podcast on the planet Earth. Any knowledge gained is purely coincidental and does not reflect the scope or vision of the podcast or its hosts. My name is Sergio Lopez.
I'm Josh Lawyer.
I'm Tony Guaraldi-Brown.
Nice.
That was awesome. Every time I come back, I'm like, is he just going to talk? Like, music.
Yeah.
Yeah, you haven't been here since I had the soundboard.
I know.
That mic is a bit off. I think it's saggy.
Yeah, it's the saggy mic.
Do you remember when Sergio did that awesome intro and we fucked it up with a saggy mic?
We'll edit this out.
You're going to keep it in, aren't you?
We'll see how it plays in post.
5 minutes of just shit.
Yeah, sure stomped on that intro.
That was a great intro.
Yeah.
Luckily, I think we there was enough space between.
Clean editing to do.
Yeah, what is that? What is that from? Is that baseball? Is that usually what that kind of...
Oh, it's just like stock 1930s music.
Okay. I have no idea.
Nice.
I wasn't born till way after science or something like that.
I was born after science. So.
But thanks for doing this, Tony.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome back to the pod.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
I know when you asked me, I was like, yeah, totally. No, I'll totally do it. That'd be great. Like, don't sound so desperate, Tony.
Yeah. What have you been up to since?
Oh, everything and nothing. God, has it been like a year or was it the summer? When was I here last?
Yeah, it was probably like late summer.
Okay. All right. So not so bad. So maybe what? Oh, I guess that's almost a year. I'm like, what, 6 months? Oh, it's the end of May. Which just goes to show where my head is at. What have I been up to?
Well, it's also just pouring rain and cold as shit outside.
I know. I wore my rain jacket, my winter jacket yesterday, and I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's see. What have I been up to? I'm finishing up the school year. I teach high school, for those of you who have no idea who I am. So I teach high school art, and we're finishing up the school year, which is nice. It's not because it's like, yay, the end of the year, but it's like, it's just nice to see my students. They're working on their finals. It's nice to see them try to put their best foot forward for the ones that want to and create like a really solid work of art. And then you just ignore the other ones who are like, will this get me like a D, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, yes it will actually. That will.
Yes. Cool.
All right, that's all I need to pass, right?
Yeah.
I don't get that anymore. I used to get that where I used to teach where it's like, what do I need to get a D in this class? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, if you just did the assignments, I would give you a B.
I know that guy.
Yeah.
I used to be something like that guy.
That's not true because you just told me the exact opposite where like, I would just draw because I wanted to draw and get it done as opposed to like, what do I don't know. Maybe you did.
Oh, no. Art class was different, but
yes.
School in general.
Oh, well, we're not talking about school.
I was very much like, how can I get a D or C and just float through the school year as easy as possible.
I get that.
And draw in all the classes as much as I can.
Yeah. I think if I was not raised by A, two high school teachers, B, two very strict educators who were like, education is the most important thing.
Right.
I absolutely would have been that student as well. Like I didn't see the value of high school. And in some ways I still don't see the value of like the way we have high school these days.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not conducive to the business environment that we have, or even any type of business environment, right? And the way to support yourself is not really conducive with how you're taught in school.
Right.
Doesn't
make you a self-sufficient adult kind of life. It doesn't prepare you for things like that.
It deals with a lot of guilt. There's a lot of guilt in that. Like, well, if somebody doesn't finish an assignment, they're like, I said, hey, you need to get this thing done and get it to me by the end of the quarter so I can give you a grade. I want to give you the grade that you're earning, but I need something to grade. And they go, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown. I'm sorry I didn't get that done. It's like, why are you apologizing to me? Like, it's not my grade. It's yours. Apologize to yourself. But then that's the mentality of teaching. Like, if I don't do this, my teacher's going to be, mom or dad's going to be mad at me.
Right.
And it's a weird mindset to have, as opposed to like, you want to learn this so that you can learn and become smarter. I already know the stuff I'm teaching you. Like,
it's like a reward system, except for like for me, the reward wasn't worth it. So that's kind of why it's like my parents didn't give a shit. So
did they really not give a shit, or were they just too busy trying to like put food on the table to like put the effort?
They were the second one.
Yeah. Okay.
For the most part.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be. I was like a genuine.
No, yeah. Plus, they had 6 kids.
Yeah, right.
And
weren't you sleeping in the garage and shit like that? So,
yeah.
Right.
And so it was like, they just had more bigger issues than my grades.
Yeah.
And I was also very good at kind of smoke and mirrors of like, don't look at my grades kind of things.
Yeah, like here's my report card. Oh, it slipped down the garbage disposal. We don't have a garbage disposal. Oh, what's that hole in the sink?
Exactly. Most of my brothers and sisters were all kind of like that, except for my youngest brother and youngest sister. And so but it was kind of like they knew to not bring up report cards because we were like, don't fuck this up for us.
Well, just wait until we're out of the house. Okay? Then you can just shine as bright as you want.
Exactly.
Sergio, you went to school at Piner?
Yeah, Piner and Montgomery.
Okay. How are you like as a student?
3.5 grade average.
Motherfucker.
Show off.
No, it's I'm right there with you. Did you like being in school?
No, but I did what I had to do to not
survive.
Yeah,
I get it.
But well, the thing for me was before I even started school, like as a kindergartner, my mom and my older brothers taught me to read before I even got into school. So I already had a leg up with a lot of students. So most of what I learned in elementary school didn't actually catch up until third grade.
Right now, Sergio?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just an emotional conversation. Shut the fuck up, Josh. Leave him alone. Sorry.
Digging back into my past brings up
puberty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's an emotional time. Shut up.
Yeah.
You start breaking out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the like my son is going through that stage where he's like learning to deal with that. Sorry, not to cut you off. Just just the whole, like the other part of high school, right? It's just like, it's not just the intellectual side. Like nobody teaches you how to deal with the emotional bullshit that you have to go through, right?
The popularity contest.
Not even just the survival contest of like, there's a giant fucking zit on my forehead. Right. Adults will just be like, I'm going to make eye contact with you and ignore that mountain that's on your forehead. And every other student's like, click, 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 Snapchat. See the fucking mountain on the top of his head? Oh my God. And it's like, it's brutal, just brutal all the way around, always has been. And nobody ever really teaches you how to be like, hey, don't be a dick, all right? Like, don't be an asshole. Like, just leave them alone. They're already having a rough day.
Yeah. It's hard to see past like that. Fishbowl you live in, as a high schooler. You're like, this is the world. Everything here is the most important thing to ever happen always. And you grow up a little bit and you're like, oh, there's other people and other places who went through the same stupid shit I went through. And
I think, that's a hard thing. I think a life lesson in general. Right?
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who are right now in this moment in time going through the same thing.
Right.
Like I'm going through. And it's and the teenage brain, the pubescent brain itself is not geared towards looking outside of itself, because it's gone from like, this is the world to, all right, now this is who I am, to when you get through your mid 20s, and then it's like, oh, here's the world again. For the last 15 years, I've like not known that it's there. Now it's like, oh shit. Oh, this is how I'm supposed to survive. Oh, this is how I get my career. This is how I get my family. This is how blah, blah, blah.
It's weird how that works. Your brain like clicks into some different mode. At least for me, when I hit 25, I was like, I'm so different than last year. Like this weird fucking like, my brain is better. Yeah. It's a superhero now.
I don't know. It took me about probably 27, 28 to get there. I don't know. I did not learn to read before kindergarten, Sergio, so I did not have a leg up. Shut up!
I'm still a horrible reader.
Yeah, I am. Well, I'm not a horrible reader, but I definitely am not like an avid reader. I definitely listen to things better. I definitely see things better. But when it's time to like sit down with a book, it's like, oh God. Like,
I told MJ I was dyslexic, and she was like, "No, you're not. Stop talking." And then she looked up the thingies and the like symptoms, and she's like, "Oh, you're dyslexic." And I was like, "Am I?" And she explained to me, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I am. I was just saying that. But I'm for sure 100% dyslexic."
Are you an avid reader? Do you read?
I used to read a lot more than I do now.
Right.
Pretty much just listen to everything these days.
Right. My eyes it takes me a couple of seconds to track, that's what it's called when you're reading the line is tracking. It takes me a couple seconds if I'm like holding a book. A magazine I can jump into for some reason. Psychologically, I know like this is not going to be a long read, so it's okay.
You could see the end.
But all in all, when I look at like if somebody hands me a page, like a Xerox copy, and it's full of text, my eye will circle and circle and circle until it knows where, because it's trying to find the focal point. Because my eye is trained for art. It's not trained for reading. So it's like, where's your focal point? Where's the fucking focal point? Oh, go up to the upper left. Oh, okay, that's right. We're reading now.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it does it. It will circle. It will jump. It'll want to jump lines because
I have that issue.
Yeah, and rereading the same line because your brain is wanting to think faster than your eyes are tracking, that kind of stuff. But for me, it took me probably in my mid-30s when I was like, why is reading, once I'm in it, and I move through it really quickly, but getting into it is hard. What is that? And then when I sit down and look at things, like for school teaching, sometimes you get these, whatever the, administration passes down and like, hey, you need to take care of this. And it's like, oh, I can't even friggin' read this. Like the font is so small and it's so dense. Like, how am I supposed to look at this? And I'd hate, friends who are English teachers would be like, all right, so I had totally, got all the information I needed. And I'm like, I haven't even started yet, but then sit down with a comic book and I know exactly how to move through that, pay attention to everything, where my eye is supposed to track to, how to read that work of art. I know exactly what's the thing you're supposed to be focused on, move around the page, then start to pay attention, foreground, middle background, all those things, that the visual vocabulary that you pick up just by looking at art. But yeah, so it's just interesting. And I guess that just kind of goes back to like schooling, right? Like it's not, to have public education means you have to have a broader view of education that you're giving to the children, which means, as much as we say like it's not one size fits all, but it's like if you want it to be free, it kind of has to be one size fits all. If you want to start paying for it, then you could start paying for catered, where it's like your child seems to be more adept to this. We should probably give them this kind of education or that kind of education.
Do you think that, because you were saying earlier that the school system's kind of structured horribly, I always thought that they should kind of do that in general, of like this person seems to kind of lean towards learning through like a physical, like
tactile and physical.
Exactly. They might be like a mechanic or like a machinist or something like that. Should we head them that direction, or is that tough because you're kind of limiting their options if you head them that direction early on, and then they're like, I didn't want to do this shit. I wanted to be a fucking
That's exactly, you answered the question, right? I mean, it's like, because human beings are racists, then it's why you can't track students, because
I don't see color. Did you say racist?
Yes, I did. I see plenty of color, believe me, because I paint. So.
Oh, I'm colorblind. I just assume I'm doing the right thing. I have no idea how it looks.
Have you seen his palette? It's so garish. You can't legally track a student now because after, probably, I think it was around the 70s, maybe early 80s when they started to realize, so why are all, the black and Latino kids, in all the shop classes and all the white kids are on the university track? And they're like, that's pretty fucked up. So you can't do that because everybody deserves the opportunity. So the other philosophy that you kind of have, right, is that you do want to teach a child how to find themselves and how to maybe start pushing themselves to the thing that they're passionate about. But the only way to really truly find your passions is to give them kind of a broad spectrum of, here's a lot of stuff. Which one do you gravitate towards? Which one do you like? But to force them to take, you have to take 3 years of U.S. area, 3 years of history. It's you should know your history, but your history, but by the time you get to high school, maybe you're really starting to understand that, I really like art. Okay, then you should probably start to understand art history. It still pertains to history.
It was a waste of time.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's right, Mr. Jackson Pollack. See, what I loved is that Sergio was about to zone out right there. He's just getting that glazed look until you're like, waste of time.
No, I was looking for my buttons. The right buttons here.
Yeah, I mean...
No, you weren't. You were just completely glassy-eyed looking over my shoulder.
No, it's going...
Jackson Pollack? More like Jackson Bollocks. Zing!
But,
That's the word.
You mean the best.
Yeah, who is that? Where did you get that from?
I have my sources.
Excellent. All right. So sorry.
But you were saying earlier how the colored kids would have the shop classes and then the white kids would be steered towards university.
Yeah.
I mean, who's that bad for exactly? Because it sounds like white kids were aimed towards getting a shitload of debt and learning nothing still.
Right. Well, and that makes sense now, right? Because I think his name is Seth Godin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I saw a talk about about the educational system and the Industrial Revolution and the industry of business started to make a pact with schools saying, if you do this, we will guarantee your students a job and you will have a job for 50 years because of corporate loyalty.
Right.
But so that's why your grandparents be like, I worked at the same company for 50 years and blah blah blah.
I'm a Ford man.
Yeah, I'm a Ford man. Right, exactly. A brand loyalty, right? But when you get into the 80s and 90s and that stops because you start getting more globalization, corporations leave the country, you maybe have 10 years tops at a corporation if you're lucky,
right?
And also the ability to start your own business is a little bit not easier, but the economy is moving towards that. But therefore the scholastic and educational structure is still based off of a 100-year model of you're going to be loyal to this brand, so we're going to teach you to sit down. That's why you get a break after 2 hours, also because people need breaks, but it's geared up. You have your breaks, you have your 10-minute break, you've got your lunch, you've got, you finish work at this time, you have different bosses, you learn this thing, you sit down, you receive information, you do your job, right? It's also why, going back to why, if you don't do a good job on your assignment, you feel guilty and the teacher's going to be mad at you. It's because your boss is going to be mad at you that you didn't do your job, and then you're going to be fired. Except you can't be fired from the classroom, right? So therefore, if you didn't do a good job, how do you learn how to do a better job? And so that doesn't really apply anymore. That mindset doesn't apply. Yeah, it doesn't apply anymore, but we're still stuck in that mindset in the educational system of sit down, listen to me talk at you. It's changing, on the lower level inside the classroom, it changes, but at the state and federal level, it's still stuck in that mindset.
Right.
And so why is it, so you said, the white kids being able to have the opportunity, the opportunity to go to a university. If you don't take a certain set of classes, you would never be accepted into a university.
Right.
So it's not that those other children were, like, they're given a set of skills, but you're also given a set of skills that most of those jobs, there's a ceiling to them. You won't ever, you'll be a mechanic at, a car dealership, but you'll never own the car dealership.
Right.
So that's how it becomes limiting, where it's like it should not be based off of anything about your race or ethnicity or cultural or religious backgrounds. It's how well do you do given the equitable opportunities. And so that's why. But flip that on its head, where it's like a fucking welder will make twice as much as I do.
Right. An electrician makes money.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I know. That's why and they have very minimal debt. From their schooling.
Yeah, the vocational schools. Yeah, exactly.
It seems like the obsession of being a millionaire in America probably is a huge like the whole idea is like, oh, these guys, they get to be an electrician or a mechanic. They don't get to be the fucking car dealers. Like, it's because of our obsession with like this American dream that like,
absolutely,
oh, we get to be a millionaire. Like, everyone has the shot to be a millionaire. But I mean, if you look at,
no, not everybody does. No, not at all.
Most, statistics wise, the 1%.
Yeah, I think that is the American lie, and that like, well, everybody's got, you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's like, but if you come from an area where you can't be educated and you don't understand about how to to gain opportunities and then utilize those opportunities, you have to be taught how to utilize an opportunity to then advance yourself further. And if you aren't given that opportunity, or you aren't like given that type of education, then you'll always be stuck where you are. Like, I'm a white male in America. Like, the world should be my fucking oyster, right? I was never, thank you, sir. I was never, you should have like little cue cards for him, be like, cha-ching.
Yeah, exactly.
I was never taught about internships and how to actually utilize, like, I'd go to college. I went to a good college with successful people who worked in animation, illustration, and I never sat down and said, hey, can you show me how to get a job in this field?
Right.
I was always like, get your portfolio together and go talk to this guy. It's like, no. What you really do is say, like, hey, you go up to that guy and say, I know you're busy right now, but can I buy you a drink after this convention? And would you mind talking to me for a little bit?
Right.
You talk to him. But I never utilized this ability to get an internship. I never knew how to open those doors because those opportunities, I didn't know how to receive them. I wasn't educated on them. It was just work hard, get what you get, and accept what you get, and then learn to suffer.
Right.
So if you're not taught those opportunities, wherever you are, whatever your ethnicity, you're never going to know how to use them, or it's it's an anomaly for somebody who's like, you're a Hamilton, where it's like, I'm just going to write my way out of the Caribbean. And it's like, what? No, we're all stuck here. Nope, I'm getting the fuck out of here. It's like, how?
I lost you there. You talking about Alexander Hamilton?
No, my cousin.
Oh.
Yes, Alexander Hamilton. Yeah.
Talking to a couple of history buffs over here.
That's right.
That's correct. I do surprisingly know an okay amount of actual history.
Yeah.
I just don't care that much about art history. It's kind of boring to me. I don't know why.
Why am I on this fucking podcast?
To talk to me.
Thank you, Sergio. I'm going to shun Josh.
Here's the thing is that, like, you hear like the stories about how World War I started, right? And it's so fucking interesting. And then it's like, and now I have to care about this artist who it's like, I mean, I know how artists live. Like, I don't know. Like, there's not that much interesting parts about it.
I'm going to disagree with you. Sergio, chime in anytime you want.
But for instance, no,
I'm not interested in how the Kaiser got shot and it started World War I. I fucking hate World War I. I think not
so do I.
Not because it's boring, but like we already know that story,
right?
And yet history keeps repeating itself. But with art history, especially 20th century art, we don't know this story at all. It's really new. It's really, especially abstract expressionism, just dismantling the idea of art for the last two millennia.
That propaganda machine you're talking about?
Well, yeah, art. I mean, art is a propaganda machine, and that's exactly what it was from, basically, I mean, we call it art, but it's how the Egyptians communicated. It's how, it's all just a propaganda machine. I mean, it's a lie, and that's why Sergio's paintings look so realistic. But when you actually is that a cutout? Did you get a Xerox copy? It's like, no, I'm lying to you, motherfucker. This is just pigment on a canvas. Boom.
But I don't know.
I know. You just like to stir the turd, Josh.
A little bit. But I just don't find it that, I think in history, there are these real storylines of tragedy and triumph.
Yeah.
I think when you get those, such intense moments, it's hard to kind of, care about guys putting paint on panels, It's like,
yes,
it's like I don't really care that much about it. I love art and I love some of the paintings, but I don't really care too much to dive deep into their storylines because I don't think that they're that interesting. It's Van Gogh, I feel is one of the more interesting of the artist tales. And even that, I'm I mean, it's cool and all, but whatever. He just seems like a bit of a nutty guy whose emotions he wore on his sleeves and ends in a tragic moment. And, like to cut an ear off every once in a while.
He's only got 2 of them, man. He's only got 2 shots to do that. It's interesting. I absolutely understand that. Do you care about other people? I know it sounds like an asshole question, but it's actually a real question. Do you find yourself...
Oh, I care deeply about my family and friends. Yeah.
No, I mean outside of your circle.
No, probably not.
Okay.
I mean, for instance, I mean, I do in a way, for instance, when Syria was going through their whole, when they were getting, the siege was happening with them, and there was the horrific things that were happening to children. I was I would talk to MJ about it and be on the verge of crying for it, and things like that. I could empathize with a ton of human, the
tragedy has to be pretty escalated for you to feel empathetic to it, though.
Yeah, I think so. Probably. Okay. I mean, I could, if I don't know,
that would make sense why you could give 2 shits about art history, right? Because it's not Van Gogh had a tragic life, right? He painted for 3 years and what he produced 8,000 paintings. It's remarkable, right? It's definitely a high-end, high-emotional state to be, therefore, grabs your interest. I could see that. But, of course, if you just talk about, Jackson Pollack was a white guy who flung paint on it, and suddenly it changed the world, and you're and was he crippled? No. Was he enslaved?
I don't even care if he's crippled.
Right, but there's no tragedy there.
I don't care that Chuck Close is crippled.
That's actually a really tragic story. That dude watched his father die right in front of him, and couldn't do anything to save him. And see, for me, I'm that's really intense, and how that cultivates his style of artwork. But I'm only trying to understand so that it's Josh is an asshole and he's ignorant. It's no, Josh doesn't care because his level of empathy is at a different stage than mine is, and it doesn't make you better or worse. It just makes it why I can look at some Rauschenberg, and go that dude just grabbed shit and pieced it together and talked about it well, but it's drunk white guy in the 60s who it's and he was gay, he is gay. It's well, is that a bad thing? It's no. Is that a hard thing? Kind of. Okay. Should he really give a shit? No. But you take Francisco Goya, and that dude was crazy, and the Inquisition was on his back all the time, and he was constantly being hey, fuck you,
right?
So
well, for me, it's is the art great? That's the main thing that matters. How you got there based off of life experience, might be interesting or not, but even then, I'm still hesitant to let that influence how I feel about the art. It's
and what makes great art? I think we've had this conversation, but it's been a year. I'm sorry. You're we heard this podcast already, you guys. Jesus Christ.
I mean, that's a tough question to answer, but it's all personal in my opinion. So,
yeah, no, it's all so completely subjective.
If I connect to it myself and I think it's great, then I think it's great.
No, I mean, do you have a criteria, or what do you find as great artwork? Name your top 5 artists.
I mean, for me, my favorite work is usually, it's got to be something compelling, that catches my eye. And it usually has to have some representational aspect to it. It can't just be full on abstract. I mean, there is some abstract work that I like, but it's few and far between for me. But I also really love when there's something representational and something abstract in the piece, and they can kind of help each other out. I think the way I don't know, subject matter and all that, it's kind of like all those things I find as tools. I think, I mean, I've talked about it a lot, but the ability to explain what you're trying to say in a piece, I feel like is almost the most important thing in a piece, or at least having something that I can kind of feel like you're trying to say something is really important. But I think being able to accomplish that is the toughest part in art, and doing it well, is the toughest part. And so if someone accomplishes that, where it's not like an idea that I get beaten over the head with, like politics or some shit like that. Right. Those kind of, the subtleties in art and being able to tell a story through your subtleties, and through, even if there are moments of being dramatic, if you've gone through like the spectrum of being able, like of intensity and subtlety or whatever. And I don't know, it's fucking I can talk for hours about what I think makes a great painting.
I'm fascinated to hear.
But there's also like ideas that are really, really good that artists do, that I feel like us as artists, we can see and we can go like, oh yeah, any of us had the option to paint that. And it's a great idea, but just he was the first person to grab it out of the air and put it on paper. And it's a great idea. And a lot of times those are like one hit wonder pieces or some shit for people.
Yeah.
But it's tough. I don't know.
What about you, Sergio?
Yeah, I definitely have a certain criteria of, I guess, technical ability that comes into play when I think of art that I personally think is great.
Like a good title?
Yeah, good title.
Sorry.
Very important.
But yeah, there's definitely, like, after a certain point, you get to, when you're whittling it down from just like really good to great, you definitely have to get to where you're thinking about, is the idea they're conveying, like, how great of an idea is it? Like, because I think a lot of creativity is like a way that you're trying to solve a problem. So mainly with artists, we kind of create our own problems to solve in our work. So it's almost like, what's the ambition of the problem that you're trying to solve, and how close do you get to solving it?
What do you find, like, what do you end up finding that you gravitate towards the most?
As far as what I like to look at?
Yeah.
There is that quality, I guess, of something. I like finding things where I can't figure out how it's done. Like, it's a puzzle that isn't easily solvable in the work.
Technically, you mean? Technically,
and just like more in a loose way, like how did they get to that idea to even want to express that?
Yeah.
Like, there's a part of it to that. So just all of those different elements put together, that's like my favorite stuff to look at.
Yeah.
Do you guys think then that the idea becomes more important than the technical ability? I mean, we're talking,
Right. I think they're kind of hand in hand in a way. I think,
or do you have to have strong technical ability to be a good artist?
I think they go hand in hand. Like, you have to work on both of them to become great. It's like if you compare it to any other art form, right? Like, if you compare it to writing, it's like all the great writers, they had a great story they were trying to tell you, but they also were able to execute it in a very great way, where if I had a great idea and I tried to write a book about it, it would be all over the place and not so well executed, just because I don't have those skills to do so.
Technical ability.
Yeah. And another thing with the whole great thing is, it's interesting when you see how time is such an important thing in that. So like if what someone who does something great right now, in maybe like 20 years, it might seem overdone or cliche or something just because.
Just like most things in our popular culture.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see how you can, if you don't have this, I don't know. I think it's like if you follow trends, if you're the greatest at the trend, you still might fall to the wayside because that trend might die out or something like that. So timelessness is like another weird defining factor of greatness of artist.
Yeah. So I went to the DeYoung, God, was that just last weekend? Last weekend and caught the Monet exhibit. And it's the later years.
I believe it's pronounced Monnet.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Monnet. Cloudy Monnet. And so it's the later years work. So there's pretty much a lot of the water lily paintings. It's probably the last 7 years of his life where he starts to become blind. And his assistant is pretty much mixing up his palette. He's just kind of telling her like, hey, can you mix this? And they're huge. They are freaking huge paintings. Like I don't know if you guys got a chance to go down to see it at all.
I haven't seen it yet.
And they aren't even the biggest that he has. Like I've seen
some of his work. I know they're huge.
Yeah, they're large ones, but also just incredibly expressive. They're breathtaking and beautiful, and his color theory is amazing because you look at that stuff and like technically you're like, that should just be a big pile of shit. Like you've got every color in the same spot. Like you are putting orange on top of green on top of purple, and instead it's just shimmering. And his technical ability and his ability to not oversaturate the canvas with color and even let some of the white of the canvas come back through underneath, lets the color like shine through. You think you're looking at purple, and of course, we're all trained enough to go like, that's not purple. That is, like this color, this type of blue on top of that kind of red, on top of that kind of violet, on top of, and then there's green next to it. And it's just pushing and pulling all of it. And then there's the mark making of his brush. One of the pieces, I couldn't tell if it was, if he was trying to simulate fog, but he had taken a large, probably maybe 6 by 20 foot canvas, and he had painted all of it and then took his palette knife and scraped the lower half back off so it left this faded green. And it looked like just kind of fog, like an early morning fog in front of these bushes. And I was like, that is like awesome. You're laying the paint down because it needed to be laid down so then you could scrape it back and get that color that you absolutely wanted, as opposed to like mixing the white or using the brush. And you could definitely see that this man was painting because he loved what he was looking at, and the best way that he could express that love was through his use of paint. And some of them get completely almost abstract where you're just like, I was looking at him going, what is this? What am I looking at? I read the title and it's, the Japanese bridge, but it's the Japanese bridge 20 years later. It's completely overgrown and I couldn't recognize it. So I was like, wow, this is cool. Well, I want to take a picture. I pull out my phone, and because of the optics of what the phone does, it immediately, boom, locks into place, pushes the contrast. So the shadows are, deeper, the highlights are brighter.
Right.
And suddenly the bridge appears, and I start like looking through my phone at all of because he has about 6 or 7 of those paintings of that bridge at different types of day. So it's different colors, different color schemes, different, approaches. And they all suddenly, like, they look completely abstract, but the phone locks them into place, and suddenly you see just a bunch of bridges, right? But it's his inability to see clearly that makes it a little bit more abstract, but also his color theory is just so on point. Well, I leave that exhibit and I go look at the Gaugin exhibit, which is on the other side of the museum. And it's interesting.
Gaugin.
Exactly. Gaugin.
Goggin.
And that if you don't know Gauguin's story is that he's a French painter as well, but leaves to go to the South Pacific, falls in love with that place, falls in love with a lot of 2 young women, like they're TOO, not TWO. And he's not a good guy. And you read this, and even the museum was just kind of like, Gaugin writes to his wife and says, I have to go and do this thing. And it's like, leaves his wife with all the kids and goes and traverses through the South Pacific to paint and become a better painter and do something. I think even one of his quotes is like, I feel like I'm on the verge of creating something that hasn't been seen in France before. And you could see the difference between these two artists. Like, people don't like Gauguin, even though he's a great through history, because the human being is an asshole. And it shows in his painting. Technically, they're fine. They're good. They're good observations. He's showing a part of the world that people hadn't seen before at that time. The color is interesting, but they're also like not as, I don't know, it just felt a little bit weaker. And then you have somebody like Monet. I don't know how he is personally, but like, he was dealing with the death of his oldest son. He was dealing with the death of his second wife. He was going blind, you know. He'd just finished World War I, you know, like, so the world is in a shitty place for him. What does he do? Goes to the thing that he loves the most and puts it on the canvas and expresses it the best way that he possibly can to show the world that he still loves this thing through the color and through mark making and through, you know, just brushstrokes. And I thought, like, that's the difference between doing art, right? Like, for me, that's the difference between, you know, like, you can be a good painter, you can be a technical painter, you can have a story to tell, but if you emotionally aren't putting yourself onto the canvas, you know, as you said to me at your show, you know, like, making my art is a sacred thing, you know, and I'd be like, what? Like, did that just come out of your mouth, sir? You know, because you're like one of the most irreverent people I know on the surface about art, you know, but you making your art is a sacred thing, you know, for both of you guys, right? And to see the difference between, like, Monet painted because that was one of the best ways that he could express his love, whatever it was. Gauguin painted because he wanted to be famous. And you can kind of see that in people's work. And I think when you get back to trend setting and people who survived trends, because Monet set a trend, but almost, you know, 150 years later, that dude is still the cream of the crop. For almost all,
there is none higher. MC.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep going, please. You know, but he is, you know, the highest echelon of not only impressionist painting, but painting in general, because of his technical abilities, but also his way to take the technical ability and translate his emotion through that technical ability onto the canvas, as opposed to, like, it's almost like Gauguin painted because he was greedy. You know, and so I think in some ways, if you are authentic with your emotions and what you're creating, even if the emotions are surface level or you're just dealing with surface level ideas, I think that's how you start to, you may not be a great person, but it's at least for yourself, how you stand the test of time and how you move through time without, you know, crumbling underneath it.
Yeah.
So it's my 20-minute tirade about the Monet and Goggin exhibit. Thank you. I will see you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing that I kind of, the history behind art, I don't, that's the reason I don't like it, is because I feel like when I look at a painting, if I can pick that up, that's great.
Yeah.
But if I can't, then I'm fine without it, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So it's almost like, it's kind of like if I should be able to pick up a part of everyone's personality through their artwork, at least, if not like a ton about them, you know.
Yeah, you should.
Based off of their art. So like
agree.
the parts that they leave out, I'm kind of like fine not knowing that, because it's like, this is what you wanted me to know. The other stuff you were just living through. And if you wanted me to know, then you should have put it in there. Yeah. And
you know, and I think some way, you know, I can't even imagine what, you know, like Monet was going through, you know, to the perseverance. Yes, it's part of his, you know, the story that we've given him now. It's like, well, he was going blind and he still painted. It's like, wow, that's amazing, because we all kind of like that.
We should call him the Ray Charles of art.
Yeah, that's right. You know, exactly. And even that's part of Ray Charles' story, right? I mean, Ray Charles is a great pianist. He's a great singer. He's a great songwriter.
It's pronounced pianist.
Oh, excuse me, penis? What?
Yeah, pianist.
Thank you. With a T?
With a T at the end.
Oh, thank you. He's a great penis. Oh, three dudes sitting in a room talking about dicks.
What's new? History repeats itself.
Waiting to Dry, podcast number. Yeah, he's great at it, right? But of course, part of his story that's compelling is that he's blind. Stevie Wonder's the same way. You know, it just elevates that ability, the human condition, a little bit further.
Yeah, but they're both beasts. That's the whole thing, right?
So is Monet. That dude is a fucking, like, when you stand in front of those paintings, you're like, this thing is fucking huge.
Like the art, like if no one told me Ray Charles was blind, I would still be like, God damn, this music is good. You know?
Yeah,
Same
absolutely.
with Stevie Wonder. You know, it's like, you don't need to be convinced by the blindness. That's like a fun little detail. Sure, I'll take it or not. But the art stands alone.
Yeah.
You know, it's able, that's what makes them great. It wasn't like sure, that can be a selling point or a marketing tool, but I don't think it should determine if I like the work or not.
But but there is the other factor of it does influence the work. It does influence, like Ray Charles being blind influenced him to be better, to push himself further, because without that, he would pretty much be dead.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
You know, so whatever, I don't know. I
understand the struggle in life. You can use that to kind of propel you through your art career or whatever. I agree. I just think that
you just want the work to stand on its own.
I prefer if I judged it based on the work.
Yeah.
And then if I find these details out later, then I'm like, that's cool. I didn't know that. But I already know how I feel about the work. So it's like an extra little bonus detail. Like, oh, that's cool to know. But I don't necessarily, it doesn't, if I like a piece of work, there's nothing you can tell me about the artist that'll make me like it more. You know, like, oh, yes. Now,
in that case.
Yeah.
Well, then what about the title? Like when you read...
Right. Well, the title helps me. Well, that's part of the piece, right?
Is it really, though?
I think so.
It's a postscript. You know, I mean, you may have an idea, but the fact that the title sits next to the piece, it has nothing to really do with it.
Or behind the piece.
It's what we bring to the piece, right?
Right. But it is like, but it is kind of like it is from the artist, right? Intentionally putting it as to help you understand the piece. It's not like if I got if my whole family was slaughtered as a kid, I'm not putting that next to my piece to give you more insight in my piece. I mean, maybe someone has with art bios or whatever.
That'd be a great title. It's near the name of my band.
but I'm intentionally putting this, the artist, not historians, not anyone else. It's me saying, this is what I want you to know about this piece. So I don't know, in a way it's the little fish under the shark or whatever. You know, they have a symbiotic relationship.
Oh, got it. I'm like, did I miss something? I got to go back through your podcasts.
You know, that eats the scraps. They work together. Maybe they are their own separate things, but they help each other out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because, I mean, the same argument that you make about the history of an individual versus being able to just have the work stand alone is the same argument that I've heard about titles. You know, it's why some artists just have it be untitled, because it's like, I don't want anything to influence you but what you're looking at right in front of you. Right. As opposed to like, oh, now I get it. I read the title. And it's like, it's the same.
But the thing is, your history, you have very little control over, you know.
I don't know.
I'm not a free will believer, so so I'm gonna go that route. But
can I make a bad dad joke?
Yeah, do it.
Who's Will? Thank you.
I like it.
Thank you. Anyways, now that we've gone through the art history part of the podcast,
I blacked out for the last 20 minutes.
I know they're just like, I need another fucking beer. He's two.
Thank you for adding to that art history, Sergio.
Well, what's funny is that I actually don't know a lot of art history, like individual people's stories.
What the fuck?
There's thousands and thousands of people, right? You know, I mean, how could you know all of them, right?
But yeah, I'm actually kind of in the same boat as Josh, where I don't care that much about the individual stories. It's more about the overall, like, I like art history in the context of history, like what's going on in the time that makes such and such painting more important, like what was going on in the world, like the French Revolution, why the art of that came out around that time, what historical significance does that have? That's kind of interesting to me. But individual artist stories, unless they stand alone as stories, then I'm not that into them.
I mean, that's absolutely, you know, I think you and probably most other people too. I mean, I don't, you know, every work of art I see, I'm like, I want to know about that artist more. It's just, you know, I think Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. I like how art influences history. I think that's why I like art history, is that I like to see how it becomes the ripples in the pond of that moment and how that suddenly hits other things and moves those things around. And with 20th century art, I think where we're at, and even moving in through the 21st century, where we are at, we sometimes have, because we're so inundated with information and optics, that we take for granted what actually like the last century did for us now, and so just even the abstract art, it's hard to understand, which is why the artist's story I think came into play even more. Is that the critics push that further and further, so that it's like Jackson Pollack, he's a reclusive man. He's kind of he's a man's man. It's like
right.
He's a wife beater. He's an asshole. Like he's a drunk. He might have been a good friend. I don't know. The fact is, but what he did for painting was interesting in that he helped perpetuate the idea of the artist's hand through time onto the canvas, and that made the individual artist help perpetuate the idea of the individual artist a little bit more. Also, the concepts of space and time, so on and so forth. I like it, but is it like the most moving and captivating painting for me? No, I understand its place in history. I understand how it affected history. Do I want to actively go and see a Jackson Pollack exhibit? No. Aesthetically, it doesn't speak to me the way that like the Rubens exhibit down at the friggin' Legion of Honor will.
See, here's the thing is, like, the artist hand in the work, I think, is an inevitable thing in general. Like, if we stand in front of cave paintings, there's no way you don't think of who the fuck did that. No matter what, whose hand did this thing. Even when I stand in front of Rembrandt's, I think the same thing. I think I'm standing where he stood.
Yes.
Now I have to break down how I think he did it, and
you don't have to.
I mean, me personally, I have to.
Yeah. I just meant what.
Yeah. You don't. You as a human being, as a viewer, that doesn't.
No,
have to.
Yeah, but as an artist, yeah.
Yeah, but for me, and I go and I start thinking about how he did it and his process. It's like inevitable for me to think that way.
Do you think that's part of his story then, right? Then who he is and what he's done as an individual.
Right. I mean, I think we're getting bogged down by the art history. Like
No, just curious. I'm just having a nice
because he's I'm still looking at him, right?
Yeah.
At what he's presenting. He's saying, "Look at this."
Yeah.
And I get to draw from that him as a human being.
The hand gesture that you just made when you're like, look at this. Yeah. I was like, did you just lift your skirt up at me, sir? I like what I
wish.
Sorry.
But
yeah, what do you got there, Sergio? Well, I don't have a sound No, it's true. I think for me, I actually enjoy seeing the artist's hand more. I think I enjoy. It helps break up the classification that I think critics and historians do for art itself. In that, I can say the Impressionists, but between us, we could probably name 12, even though there were probably hundreds and hundreds of them that would classify themselves as Impressionists, right?
Right.
So seeing the individual in the work of art helps me connect, or seeing the mark making helps me connect with the individual's hand.
Right.
And that's my own personal aesthetic. And so when I don't see the artist's hand and I see that everything is like, I love Rembrandt. I love his sense of light, but I can't see who he is through his mark making. I have to see who he is through the shades of value and color that he's put down, right? Because it's pretty seamless. I mean, until you're up on that, you don't really see like.
But see that's what tells me so much. It's like, like for instance, if someone's really into mark making, it tells me something about how they want to be seen in their art.
Yeah, and that's how I express myself half the time is through my mark making.
Right.
So I relate to that sensibility, which is why the Monet exhibit was so like, my God, this is beautiful. I can see how he was feeling through how he used, it's how he used that mark, recently,
Right. And if someone's rendering the shit out of the thing, it tells me that they just geek out on
rendering,
on the rendering part. And even though I can't see, maybe I can't see a physical mark, that tells me who they are as a person in a way. they're into like zoning out and doing this for hours or whatever because that's what they really enjoy, and that as a person should tell me something about them. You know, they all might be assumptions, but at least I can try to come to those conclusions myself.
Can we perpetuate the myth that art is easy by saying like, yeah, they probably geek out for like 15 minutes and have a fully rendered drawing.
Exactly.
I mean, what, it took Red Brant like 2 hours to do one of those paintings?
Yeah.
It should be hard.
But, you know, all those things, like if you're into really strong mark making, it should tell me something about you as well. Right. Even if it's just that maybe you don't want to be seen in your work, because like for me, it's like, that's my initial reaction, right? Oh, you want to be seen in your work by blatantly showing these marks that are just so aggressive or whatever. But maybe it's just that you're following the trend. Maybe that's what you're doing, you know?
Well, I don't think you have to be so cynical about it. Like, not you personally, but, you know, the viewer has to be as cynical about it. Because I think once you come into cynicism with art, you know, then it's lost. What's the fucking point of even looking at the show? It was interesting to actually watch your guys' show and look at the different types of artwork that was there. You know, noticing that, you know, we went from, you know, mark making being expression, you know, or the most outward expression, you know, Jason's artwork being like the most abstract, the most like expressive, and that dude's like the shyest, like he, you know, just even tacky, you know, like just cornering that guy to be like, are you Jason? Yeah. You know?
Really? I don't get that from Jason at all.
No, I will see, you have to know him, but if you don't know him, right? I mean, like, you guys know Jason. I didn't. I don't even know what he looked like, and he had no clue as the fuck I was. So at first he was a little standoffish, but once I saw him interacting with you guys, I think he told you "fuck you," you know, like in front of everybody. You know, it's like, I
don't remember, but
yeah, you said something about. He's like, yeah, fuck you, you know? Right? But that kind of mark making, looking at MJ's artwork,
wouldn't be the first time someone yells at me in front of everyone at a show. By the way,
but looking at MJ's work, there's not a lot of mark making. Things are blended in, and smoothed over a lot, and I was just looking at that and trying to understand. You know, and both of you two have your own sensibilities, whether the mark making is letting color shine through underneath, you know, so it's a little bit, the surface color is a little bit rougher than the underpainting. You know, if your mark making comes with like, you know, the letting a brush stroke not be blended in, you know, on the skin tone, or the subtle mark making of the animals that you had coming through, or the mark making in those flat black areas. Some stuff comes through, it's a little bit more subtle. And you know, letting the brush show through, like, it was just interesting to see the variations of that in that show. And it was nice to see, because the funny thing is MJ is the most extroverted out of all of you guys, and her work was the most smoothed over by all of them. You know, Jason, if he just lined you up and had to talk to a stranger, is probably like even more like, get the fuck away from me than you are, Sergio.
No, really?
You just shut down.
I think he just didn't like you. That's the problem.
No, I mean, and I probably caught him off guard too, but you know,
maybe. Right. I could see how he could come off standoffish. Right. I mean, he did walk in with sunglasses on, didn't he?
Oh yeah, that was funny too.
Oh yeah.
But, and I'm not like, it's just, once again, like, as a stranger to him, and walking in and taking a look at the show and looking at your guys' personalities and how those shine through, you know, because I think you guys are all authentic artists. You all think about your work. You all push. Don't look at me like that, Josh.
No, it's burping.
But you guys are all, you know, you are all authentic artists. You all think and care about what you're doing, both intellectually and emotionally. You know, it's just interesting to see how, you know, like how you act and how you interact, and then how you act and interact with your materials. So I think for me, that's what I find fascinating, because I like to know people. I like to know how they are. And you know, we don't have to sit down and talk about your personal life, but creating is personal, and I'd like to know like how the artist is personally. And I think when they're genuine and they're really coming from an authentic emotional place, that like it shows in the work, and that's when people really genuinely gravitate to the work. And I think Jackson Pollack was doing that. It's Clement Greenberg the art critic who championed him, who turned it all around.
Fuck that guy then.
That's the guy you want to say fuck you to. You know, like if you don't like abstract art, he's the one you want to say fuck you, because he's the one who championed a lot of those guys, and he elevated Jackson Pollack. Jackson Pollack didn't even like I didn't want to be on the cover of Time. This is what I'm doing because it's what seems right. You know, it's what I want to explore with my artwork. There was no trend to follow because he was one of the first people to do that stuff. You know, and it was hard. It's like, dude, you're just splatting paint on a canvas. Like, why should we even care about this?
Right.
Because I'm an individual, and Kenneth Greenberg came in and said, like, here, this is why you should.
I don't agree with that at all.
No, it's fine. You mean like why? What?
Like the idea of justifying your work meaning something because you're an individual, because it's original. These things, to me, aren't anything that any artist doesn't already have or do. Like
right?
Everyone's already an individual. All your work, unless you're literally, even if you're trying to just copy someone's work, is going to be original.
Right. Yeah. It's going to look different because it's not their hand.
Defining greatness by these two categories, which I feel like.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that Kenneth Greenberg said that his work is great because Jackson Pollack is an individual. I was just saying, as an individual, your work should be important. Is it good?
See,
I have no fucking idea.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if there should be importance. It's like I
guess maybe. What is the classification of importance?
Yeah. I mean, I think importance meaning, at least for when I think of that, is that people should pay attention, that this is worth paying attention to. That we as a whatever whole, or as humans, this should be something that we focus on because it is worth that.
Right.
In some weird, or maybe just the art community or something like that. But I don't know. I think original and
well, nothing's original.
Nothing and everything. It's like a weird,
It's like you two. You're like a yin and a yang.
You two?
Both of you sitting on that couch.
Oh, I thought you meant the band U2.
I know.
Oh, God. It's like Bono and The Edge, which is also kind of the same.
I hope I'm The Edge.
Sorry, sir. You're not The Edge.
Damn it.
You talk too much to be The Edge.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to spread world peace. So.
So that's what I've been up to. By the way, when you asked me a half an hour ago what I was up to.
More like an hour ago.
An hour and 3 minutes ago.
Oh, shit. Sorry. I guess it's time to wrap this thing up.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The whole idea of like defining what makes great work, I think the whole original and everyone has something to say kind of thing, to me, I'm like, absolute, like that's almost like it's almost like the worst reasons why something should be great to me.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I didn't say it was great. I mean, I'm a high school art teacher. It's my job to say all of you are important. You all have something to say. It doesn't mean it's going to be great, and it doesn't mean you did a good fucking job.
Right.
What it means, though, is that I should, like, if you put effort into something and you're presenting it to me, I should maybe take 5 seconds, look at it, and assess whether it's done aesthetically well to me. Right. If the person's parents are there, like, it's the fucking greatest piece of artwork I've ever seen. It's like, well, that's your kid. And you should say that, and you should see it that way in some ways. But no, I'm not saying just because you're an individual and you made an effort doesn't make it great.
Right.
Time, effort, patience, paying attention and mindfulness to what you're doing, and I think the yearning to grow, that ultimately can make something great.
Yeah.
Or lead you to making something great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. All right. Thanks for talking to me, guys.
I feel like Jackson Pollack always takes too much of our goddamn time.
He's important. Sorry.
Is he?
By the way, I'm working on a comic book. I'll have it at the San Diego Comic Con.
Hell yeah.
I'll show you guys later.
Hell yeah. What's it called?
Hadrian and Elliott.
It's the one you've been working on.
Yeah, it's the one I've been working on. Yeah.
Hadrian?
Yeah.
I believe that's pronounced Hadrian.
No, it's Hadrian. Hey, Hadrian.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just it's the butcher character as well as this little cone nose character that I've had for years, and I decided to kind of scrap the butcher's tail, which was the super giant thing, and instead just kind of be a little bit easier about it, a little bit lighter.
Scrapping it or just setting it aside for a while?
Well, the book itself, I think I'm scrapping, but everything that I worked for with that, like creating that whole world, feeds into this comic book, and it allows, it gives both of those characters a lot of backstory to pull from, but to then sit down and do that story, I just stopped enjoying it. And I'm not saying like, oh, if it's not fun, I'm not going to do it. It's like, no, like I didn't enjoy this. Like it stopped being something that brought me fulfillment. It became like, I don't like this anymore. I don't like what this looks like or how I feel when I try to work on it. And the moment I sat down and started doing this comic book with these two characters, it's like, this opens up everything. It was interesting. I just saw my friend post a quote about, actually I think it was Andrea. Yeah, it was Andrea. Posted a quote, a Calvin and Hobbes quote. But the funny thing is that it's Calvin talking to Hobbes and basically saying, talking about like the ups and downs of life. And when you read it, it's like a super serious quote. When you're like, fuck, that's some heavy shit. And then you suddenly visualize that it's Calvin and Hobbes. And so it's this little cartoon boy with a giant head talking to his imaginary tiger. And you're like, God damn it. That's like...
Big boned head is how we pronounce it.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
PC, please.
Yeah, and just, I think looking at that and thinking, that's what that's a little bit more towards my personality. Yes, I can be grumpy and sullen, but I'm also cracking jokes a lot and laughing at things and laughing at myself a lot. And these two characters are just facets of my personality, so let's make fun of yourself a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good move.
Yeah, so it just felt a little bit more authentic. It felt a little bit more genuine. And visually, I understand where the art can go. I can do a watercolor painting when I want to, but I can also just explore my love of pen and ink artwork and line and how I can work on my storytelling a little bit better as well. And try a different format. Like it's all horizontal pages as opposed to the vertical up and down. So it changes. It keeps me on my toes about my page layout, but also just opens up that landscape where I can, bring my love of landscape painting and drawing and bring that into the artwork a little bit more too. Yes, we can blame him for that.
What the fuck, Sergio?
Ruining my comic book again. So,
how is, because I don't know if you were using color when we talked last on the podcast, but
not much. No,
I know that was that's a brand new thing, right?
Well, it's something
in your work or maybe revisiting or something.
Yeah, it was never as important, and maybe I shied away from. And then just in this last year, just coming like maybe not coming back to it, but just saying like it's something I want to explore. It's something I want to understand. Also, getting bogged down with the line work when it's not free and expressive just becomes tedious. And that was part of the unfulfilling aspect of trying to work on the butcher's tale, was that like, if this thing is going to be a pen and ink drawing, God damn it, I don't, this sucks. I want to be able to have other mediums. So
for sure.
So doing the comic book allows me to explore what I want, so that when I want to do a watercolor, I'll do a watercolor.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's good.
And so you've been enjoying color?
Yeah. I like it a lot. It's good. And it helps, again, feed my understanding of value and line work and expression that way, so I can see the color and translate it to black and white. Yeah. Something that I don't know. It makes me happy. Like, I can imagine what it's like in color, so I just shade that way.
Right.
I see.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like color.
I know you guys do.
I always try to, I have a buddy named Monty who paints in black and white, and I'm always like, you should try color.
I know.
Does he never work in color?
He does every once in a while.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I like lines probably the most, and what lines do to create something that's not there.
Yeah.
That whole illusion fascinates me the most.
That's cool.
But when I want to step back from that, watching color glide across a page with water, like that is probably the second most fascinating thing, and what comes from that and how I can respond to it and go, all right, where can we go from here, and not try to control it. And that's what I've been trying to work with my practice with the line work as well, is that I'm not trying to control it. I'm just trying to work with it and trying to work with how I'm feeling and how that energy moves through my hand and what I can create with that. And does it work with the image and the story that I'm trying to tell? And if it's not, then you better tell the story that you should be telling with the energy that's coming through your hand. So instead of trying to force myself to be something that I'm not, instead I should listen to how I feel and create from that place. And I think the Butcher's Tale was the exact opposite, is that, trying to create something that I just wasn't feeling anymore. It should look this specific way. And it's like, it's not how I'm feeling.
Right.
But, and you'll know, you can read some of the pages when I'm having a ridiculous day, the comic's funny. And when I'm having a serious day, the comic's not so funny, but it's still the same characters. When it's scary, the line work is a little bit looser. When I want to have you really pay attention, the line work gets tighter. Just listening to how I feel and the energy that comes from my muscles and my body and how that can translate onto the page. I'm just trying to listen to that and look at that more.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't think about that at all.
I didn't either. And I think in the last maybe 4 months of just trying to look at my life and what's happening in my life and the personal things that are happening there. And if I'm going to be an artist and I'm trying to express myself through my artwork, I should probably genuinely start expressing myself through my artwork. And being at that Monet exhibit was just a good reassurance of, this is probably a good path for you, Tony. Like, if you're feeling this much emotion and you're trying not to cry in front of 200 strangers because you're moved by the artwork and his line and his color and what he chose to do and how he chose to express himself, and you see the results of that expression and it moves you this way, then it's probably a direction you should probably move in your artwork as well. Yeah, and that's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's just that's where I'm at with my practice.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's a good. Me personally, I probably will never go that way, but I have a weird thought process with my work and kind of keeping like almost like a comfortable distance between me and the work. Like there's parts of me in it, but I leave. There's separation between me and the work almost.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's kind of like masking, and I think that's like a mental thing for myself to kind of like, I don't want to, it's almost like I want it to be its own thing. I want to live in its own kind of thing. And if I make it about myself, then it's like, I don't know. It's not really what I'm into.
No, I get it. Like, and this project is completely fucking self-indulgent. This is about me dealing with my feelings and having fun with it. And I get that. Like, so whenever I'm ready to move away from that, if I ever am ready to move away from that self-indulgent work, I will probably need to distance myself and my emotions from what the characters are doing. And it may happen, Right now, I'm feeding the story, but later on, if I keep doing this and I keep choosing it, they will come alive on their own. But like my daughter looked at it, I was showing her, and she was like, "He totally looks like you, Dad." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me, honey." Like, and so is that guy, and so is that monster. Like, they're all me, honey. But like I said, it's not for everybody, and the comic isn't for everybody either. It's sometimes what I think is funny and light, people are like, that shit's dark. I'm like, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's just an interaction. And that means that's probably more about them than you.
Right. And that's okay. It's, I think just coming to grips with that too, where, even you saying, both of you guys, like how you treat your work and Josh saying that you try to keep a distance from your work. And me thinking, is that why people are more gravitated to Josh's work than mine? Because I put everything out there and maybe it makes people feel uncomfortable and they don't want to look at it, while you're able to like keep a distance from yourself, and therefore they're able to project themselves into the artwork more, and that's why they like it. I don't know. It's just funny, like the thoughts that I get. I'm like, huh.
Yeah. My issue has always been, well, I think one thing I've realized was I would always, whenever anyone would tell me like if I met someone literally like they came up to me with a sob story, it would instantly push me away from them. Like,
right.
You shouldn't be telling me this because
I have to care.
I don't know you. Yeah. Not even, it's just like, I don't know. There's something where it's like I hold on to my cards tight. That's just how my personality is. So it's like, if I'm not going to tell you my life story unless you've earned it, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
You know?
Oh yeah. And I am so the exact opposite.
And so my art kind of is that way as well. It's like I hold on to my cards tight. Maybe I'll squeeze something out here and there, but you have to like earn it, or you know, it's like a weird. And that's not necessarily anything wrong or right about each side. No. It's just how my personality is.
Yeah, I just don't expect people to read it.
Yeah,
that's my other half. It's like I'll fucking show up and I'll put it out there, but I don't really expect people to care about it.
Yeah.
But this isn't for you.
Yeah. This podcast is more personal for me than my art is probably.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys talk about some personal shit on here sometimes.
Yeah. I know.
I guess
sometimes
so.
I'm like, God, I need to shut the fuck up sometimes.
Can we edit that out? Nope.
But yeah. I mean, it's interesting hearing like you using so much of your life and so much of even how you were saying about your day-to-day emotions kind of influencing that.
Yeah.
It's such like a different way of doing the process, which is interesting to me because I just can't even put myself in that. I can't even imagine myself in that, in that kind of mindset.
The good side is that I feel like I'm being authentic with the work. The bad side is that I have to be careful about what I am sharing, and just like this podcast, right? And that if I am having an interaction with somebody and that affects my mood, I need to be careful about like, how am I sharing that interaction, and therefore being like, I do want to be more mindful about like, what is mine? And there are some things that like I'll never talk about, I'm not going to put everything on the page, but this is how I can at least open myself up and be vulnerable as a human being.
For sure.
But sometimes, just going like, I shouldn't talk about it that way. And that's where the fun part about you were saying problem solving and artists being, creative problem solvers, creating their own problems in their artwork to solve, is then me stepping back and going, all right, well then what does this really look like? How does it benefit the story? Is this too self-indulgent? Are you just going off about how somebody was an asshole to you? It's like, it's like, that's self-indulgent, right? But how about you take that feeling and how can you turn that into a narrative that talks about that feeling, but isn't finger pointing, but instead translates to humanity as a whole.
Right.
And we've all been in that situation. So, I just did a piece where, Elliott, the guy with the cone nose, is talking to a giant ogre who's about to crush him with a club. And he's offering him a sandwich, and he's like, hey, like, you seem upset. I know when I get upset, it's because I'm hungry. Like, do you want a piece of my sandwich? And some of that is like just how I am, where I'll see somebody and I'll start like, hey, how are you? You look like you're having a bad day. And people are like, what? I'm like, you look like you're having a bad day. It's like, well, I am. How did you know? I'm like, well, because, and I'll just talk to somebody.
Right.
Because I genuinely care about people. And that's kind of how that character is. The other half of the character, of me, Hadrian, the butcher, is just like, what the fuck are you doing? Get out of there. Like he's about to crush you, like, and where'd you get a sandwich from? Like, what the fuck? Right. And so the ridiculousness of how I can open myself up to people some ways and how I can't in other, it's something that I can make fun of about myself. It's in some ways we all can either do that or know somebody who does that. And we can recognize it. So if I can make stories that people recognize from the emotions that I'm feeling without finger pointing or, glorifying, but instead just keep it about the characters, I think then maybe I can work more towards letting the characters be themselves, but still draw from my own authentic place. So then the work stands on its own. I'm not perpetuating it, with this way or that way. So it's tricky, but I get excited about that problem. I get excited to go like, hey, don't make this just about you. Make this about the characters. So how do you pull from yourself? How do you look inside? What does that feel like? Mull it over. Imagine it. Do you want to laugh at it? Do you want to cry about it? What does this look like? So it's been in some ways a cathartic experience, but I also have to be, I have to keep it a little sacred as well, and not just be like, bleh.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what do I share? What do I really keep for myself as well? So
has fine tuning that process kind of helped you be more proficient?
You mean like getting the work done?
Yeah.
No, not at all. It's in fact slowed it down a lot so that, because I've been fucking proficient for the last 5 months, where I just draw all the time. And I felt like some sort of, like art factory, where I was just drawing to draw, but not drawing because I loved it. And so now asking myself, all right, you got to do these pages. What are they going to look like? Well, I want to have fun drawing this page. So then really sit down and think about it. Don't just sit down and draw it. Sit down and what would you like to draw? Because nobody's paying you to do this. So then you better just enjoy it. So just relax with it. Enjoy it. Get it done when it gets done. Now, granted, I've got to get what I want done for this first issue so I can get it prepared for the San Diego Comic-Con. So it does give me a time crunch, but I don't want to rush through it. I don't want to get bogged down thinking I have to get these pages done. I have to get this artwork for my show done. It's like, no. It's like a Fugazi, the band used to say, like, you tour, you make an album.
Fugazi.
Yeah, no, it's Fugazi, sir. They used to say you tour because you make an album so you can support the tour. You don't tour to support your album. You want to love playing music, and you want to love playing music in front of people. You shouldn't, therefore, because if you glorify your album, then that's just glorifying yourself. You need to actually enjoy the act of playing in a band. Otherwise, you'll just implode.
Right, for sure.
So, and they were around for fucking 20 years, And so it's kind of the same way where I need to make sure that I'm enjoying what I'm doing and then present it, as opposed to do it so that I can present it.
Yeah.
Do I want to be Monet or do I want to be Gaugin?
Mogan.
Fuck that.
Mogan.
Yeah, exactly. Mogan. That's my new rap name.
Mo Money Mogan. But one thing else we talked about a little bit before we started recording was competition of artists. And I know Sergio did like a little thing on Facebook on, what is it called again?
Oh, Facebook Live?
I thought you had like a thing you called it.
Oh, my little title I gave it?
Yeah.
Yeah, competition isn't your enemy.
Oh, no. I thought your overall, like, a Facebook Live. That's not like a thing. I thought you had. Never mind. Whatever.
What are you trying to tell me, sir?
I'm so bad at things. I'm like, I thought there was like a name for
it's
all
called
your
the
videos.
Internet.
Oh. You mean my little YouTube vlog that I haven't done in 6 months?
Maybe that's what I'm.
Wow,
maybe I'm
subversively call him out. You're like, hey, remember that thing you used to do? What was it called?
Yeah, before you got lazy and
exactly.
just put that on the back burner.
So what was happening with it?
But just competition as artists, the pros and cons, and I know you guys talked about a bird or conversation, and you talked, and I just thought that. We've talked about competition a little bit, I think, on the podcast, but the idea of kind of having an odd, I mean, I always think that the great thing about social media is it kind of makes us competitors of like every fucking artist in the world, which might be a bad thing, but to me, I'm so fucking competitive that it's like, this is great. I love this. Like, I love seeing work that I'm like in awe of and being like, holy fuck, I need to get to work. That is amazing.
Do you consider that competition or do you consider it inspiration?
I think they're like this, two sides of the same coin kind of like you can use, I think you can be a negative competitor. And I am like, when I get inspired, that like focuses me and pushes me forward. And I think in a weird, because I'm trying to either catch up to whoever I think is great and I think that in the, is competition in a weird way.
I understand that. Yeah. No, That makes sense.
I'm not trying to like outsell people or like.
You may not be, but there's plenty of artists out there who are. Right?
Oh, for sure.
I can't subscribe to that, and it's not that it's wrong. It just doesn't work for me. And I know that because the work is so personal, it has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And if I try to compare what I'm doing to what you're doing, then it's a losing battle already, especially if I admire your work, right? And I know who I am. I will cut myself down fast because I'm not the type of person who will elevate myself above somebody else outwardly. But then there is that dark part of me where I'm like, I'm better than that motherfucker. Like, I know how to fucking draw better than blah, blah, blah. And it's like...
Sergio, did you say Sergio Lopez?
No, the fact is I don't know how to draw better than Sergio Lopez. Painting, yes. Drawing, no. But let's just take that, right? Like, you and I, Sergio, you and I have gone painting. Like, you are a far better painter than I am. I have a master's, but I have a master's degree in fine art. Oh, I'm educated, right? I should, exactly, right? I should be trained. I should be elevated. I should hold myself to that standard, right? But that's a farce. The reality is I am where I am. And I can either look at what you do, and both of you, and look at the excellence that you bring forward in your genuine work and be inspired by that and go, and then pinpoint what inspires me and how can I use that inspiration to elevate my artwork. Because the fact is, I'm not competing with sales against you guys, and I'm not competing about my own personal work against you guys.
Right.
So for me, that mindset, and I shouldn't be afraid of you, that you may get more sales or make more money than I do. Like, I don't need to be afraid of that to make my artwork mean something.
Right.
For some people, they do. They are professional athletes, right? Your job is to, like, point-wise beat another team. Or even, or sometimes your job is to physically beat a human being.
Right.
And that so that you can earn a living, maybe feel better about yourself,
right.
Get sponsors, whatever. It's not my job to outpaint you. It's not my job to outpaint anyone, outdraw anyone. But I want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and say, the amount of time and energy that you're putting into this shows.
Right.
And that people can look and see that, like, yes, this is somebody who has dedicated himself or, or herself, whoever.
There's girl artists out there.
I know.
We'll fact check that later.
I know. I think you might be married to one of them.
I'm married.
What?
Am I having a stroke?
Yes. And so I can't. It may also, the downside is that I am not as publicly seen as other artists, but that's not important to me. Being authentic, letting the work stand on its own,
right?
That's important to me. Will I ever be famous? I don't know. It's not what I can put energy into, and therefore I don't need to compete. I just need to be inspired, and I need to look and continue to look for artists who inspire me and interact with them, whether it's on a gallery wall or personally, like through conversations. So if I'm competing against anything, it's competing against my own ego and saying, you're not the best, and you shouldn't be the best. You should always learn and grow from other people, whether it's in the past or the present, And, of course, my ego then is just like, no, fuck everybody. Fuck all of them. Fuck, you're the best. It's like, no, you're not. Shut up.
You're the best
around. Yeah, so that, I guess, is my genuine competition is against myself and my ego about thinking maybe, like I should be better than I am. It's like, nope, you are where you are. This is where you should be. Continue to strive to better yourself so that your artwork is more interesting to you, and then maybe it'll be more interesting to other people.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah. You're like, I don't agree.
No. This is such like a personal thing. It's like for me, I am competitive. So the key for me is making sure that I don't get bogged down by like the negative competitiveness, but kind of using it as like a positive, like, damn, this person's killing it. It's like motivating me to like not give myself excuses to not be in my studio, or things like that. So it's like,
it's two sides of the same coin. Anyways, if it's getting you in the studio and making the best work you can make, and you're not putting anybody else down, that's good.
Yeah. But that's why I don't disagree with you, because it's like for you, if it's to help you keep your sanity by not going that direction, like I totally get that too. Because I mean, I've never been when I played sports and things, I was never not having fun.
Right.
It was always I'm very competitive, but having fun is a huge important part of that competition. If you beat me, you beat me. Like, I don't really get angry at that. I'm just like, damn, I need to push harder. Yeah. It's all internalized as like, I need to work out harder or whatever to get to the point where I can beat you. It's not like, how dare you or fuck you for beating me. It's like, well, you got me there. And so, and I'm able to kind of do that. But if I could I know people who competition will wreck them. Oh yeah. And it just brings the darkness out.
Yep. You're looking at them. There's a
I see.
How many bodies you got under your couch?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's also, I knew that from a young age. It's why I didn't really like competing, because I'm a small, skinny guy, like I've always been just a small, skinny kid. So the fact is, like, I'm not going to win that way.
Right.
Like, I mean, if I'm not going to win that way, it's just the truth. And either I can have this complex where I have to beat everybody, or I can just say, hey, you know what? Just like leave it alone. This isn't a competition.
Right.
Instead be inspired. And that's how I can have fun myself is, I mean, like even when I would spar with people, I'd go to my brother's dojo and they'd be punching me in the face and be like, damn, that's a good shot. Good job, because I knew the other way around is, you know what? Fuck you.
Right.
I'm now going to break your legs. And because competition, my sense of competition, my sense of competition makes me angry. It makes me angry. And if I become angry in a faux violent situation, then I'll become angry and it'll become a violent situation. Right. And so doing martial arts taught me that, like, you can't compete with people that way. You can't physically try to push against somebody because you will lose, whether emotionally or physically. And so art is more personal than that for me. And it's like, if I compare myself and I keep trying to ratchet up that comparison higher and higher and higher to people who I, think are better than me more and more and more, I'm going to lose.
Right.
And then what happens? Now I'm just a loser.
Right.
And it's like, fuck. As opposed to like, hey, they're great. And they put the time and effort in. What do you want to do? I want to put the time and effort into my own work. Okay, go put the time and effort. So just like you're saying.
Yeah.
I just have to be careful. And that's, like, I mean, I'm happy and cheery, but there is a dark side to me. And I have to really be mindful of that so that I can be the best person that I can be and a kind person, as opposed to like an asshole, and a mean person. So that's, so I have to be careful even about the term competition.
Right.
I have to, whether it's a mind trick or whatever, it's like, nope, it's inspiration.
For sure.
Not competition. It's inspiration. So.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself to be competitive, or you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do plein air competitions, so that's part of the name of the game.
Fuck yeah, bitches! We're gonna paint some fucking landscapes. You walk by and like accidentally kick people's easels. Like, oh, sorry about that.
You wear your landscape black belt when you
exactly.
Fuck yeah.
Tie it around my head. Yeah.
You're the best around.
He just has that playing while he paints.
I'm sorry. So you are
new button for my soundboard coming soon.
Do it.
But yeah, I look at it though as a inspiration in that way, where if I get third place like I did this time, I look at second and first and be like, well, what did they do to gain like a higher rank? And I look at that and I go, well, do I want to paint that way? Or like, do I want to bring in what they do in their work into mine? And I'll either like take some parts of it or reject it outright. And I just look at it more in that way. It's a continuous like building process, kind of what you were saying before. Where it's an internal competition more than anything.
Right. Yeah. I think it's also difficult when art can be even, landscape, plein air painting. I mean, if you're creating something from your hand and putting it onto a canvas in a genuine way, it's personal.
Right.
Even if it's design, if you're like, that's why designers get so obsessive about their stuff. And it's funny how you're like, well, like I want to take something that's personal that they're doing and incorporate it into my work as well. Like, I mean, both of you guys are amazing painters, you know, and to like look at both of you, how you both treat color and whatnot. It's interesting to watch, and I know who I am though, right? So having a stronger sense of self also helps create like a less aggressive sense of competition, you know, and being like, no, I know who I am. So having the ability to reject, like, you know what, that's just not who I am as a painter.
Exactly,
you know? And it's not who I am as an artist, but, you know, or be like, fuck, that is a badass technique. I should probably figure out how to use that thing because it's pretty sweet. Put in my bag of tricks.
Yeah, before I was better at landscape painting than I am now, I was like trying to take everybody's technique, and so my stuff was all over the place, especially with plein air painting.
I noticed that.
Your plein air little group.
Yep, that's right.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I know.
Just kidding, Sergio.
I will say, being around other artists as well, like having the art group, you know, that we're part of,
right,
and really seeing people at all different levels have the same type of struggle. You know, as we said earlier, you know, everybody goes through the same thing. We're all human beings. So, you know, whether it's somebody who's like, I don't really know how to draw that.
As far as we know, have you met Plague?
Let's not. That dude is like an android.
For sure. He's an alien for sure.
He is. He just got some Crocs. Sorry, if you don't know what we're talking about, Plague of Crows.
Yeah.
These people are not freaking humans, okay?
Fuck that guy, by the way. Fuck that guy. Not Juan, just that guy. But you're right, Lizard Man himself. But yeah, if we're all going through the same thing.
Evil ain't cool and evil ain't fun.
Every single time, it just keep cutting me off with sound bites.
Oh, I can. You want me to?
No. I'm important, and what I have to say is great. Thank you, Josh Lawyer.
Was that my quote? Did you just quote me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for crediting me for that quote.
You're welcome. So, yeah, there we are.
We just totally lost our...
I think it's probably time to wrap it up.
Someone was like they were just like, I can't wait to hear what Tony has to say.
Nope, no, I found that I'm just repeating.
All right. Should we do
my question corner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, this is a long one.
Sorry, Tony.
No, I don't mind at all. It's not a Brave Castle podcast, but, because we would only be halfway through.
I know.
Literally, yeah.
It's time for Sergio's question corner.
Question number 1.
Yes, Sergio.
Who are your top 5 living artists?
Well, he's already answered this, right?
I don't know if you have.
I mean, I did, but it was a year ago.
Okay.
We'll talk about right now.
Yeah.
Who's influencing me top 5. Right now. Probably, I know this is Bill Watterson, Calvin Hobbes.
Right
sitting down and looking at his work and going like, holy shit, you know, this guy. And even reading some of his articles, he doesn't think he's as great as he is, obviously, but his ability to connect intellectual with playful is the best way. That really gets a true message across. So Bill Watterson.
He used 2 great avatars. It's to kind of explain what he wants to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
It's genius. Nate Van Dyke also dropped him as top 5, I think.
Yeah,
too.
and his drawing abilities, like his actual composition and line work,
he's a
fucking
beast.
spot on. Yeah, fuck yeah. So
Plus, he probably created a shitload of artists.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like especially Sunday pages. Holy crap, when you do like the full panels. Joseph Clement Cole's a pen and ink artist.
He's not alive.
What? Oh shit, that's right. Sorry, alive? Fuck. Human beings. Oh god. Art history save me. All right, sorry. So Bill Watterson, alive. Ooh, god damn it. Son of a bitch. All right. Takahiko Inoue, who does Vagabond. It's manga. Who else inspires me? Oh god.
Did we let dead people last time you were on?
No, yeah, I think we just...
We're still doing dead people.
Yeah, I think you did top 5. Oh, God. Now I'm in the hot seat. Oh, son of a bitch. Who else do I look at? Oh, my God. I wish I knew how to pronounce his last name.
It's lawyer. That's how you pronounce it.
Oh yes, sorry, lawyer. There's a gentleman on Instagram who does Western paintings. Mark.
Kabagoo.
Yeah. What do you call him? Maguglier?
Yeah.
That's what Monty called him.
Yeah, I need to look him up so I know how to pronounce his name. And since my last name is Guaraldi-Brown as opposed to Girardi or Garibaldi, there's no B in there, sir.
First name pronounced Oni.
Yes. One. Yeah. Tonwai. So, anyways, because I draw a lot of horses and the characters usually ride around on horses, his work is pretty inspirational and his color work is good. So he inspires me a lot. Who else? God damn it. I don't have 5. Oh no. I don't look at anybody else.
There's no one on your Instagram that you're like always stoked to see pop up.
So all right. So my friend Jason Sean Alexander is a painter and
they could be your friends.
Yeah.
They could be your friend.
No, Jason is my friend. I've known him for 12
years. But that's what we're saying.
Like, I feel like everyone has like this weird hesitation to say people they know.
Well, I also don't want to be like, I know Jason John
love Sergio so much.
Are you hinting towards yourself, Sergio? We're all trying to like, and then...
motherfucker.
As opposed to you outright going, lawyer.
It was just a perfect... I know. I was like, I should have said Lopez just to put it on you instead of me.
I love what Jason's doing with Spawn right now and his comic book work and just how excited he is to do that. And to see him in an excited place to work is fun to see. And it is inspirational for me. And then, I mean, yes, you guys influence me too, but
you don't have to pick us.
I can't put you at the top fucking 5, even though yes, both of you do. I know I won't, but yes, you two do influence me greatly. My two friends actually, they're a pair. Dave Baker and Nicole Gu. It's Goux. Nicole.
That is a tough last name.
It is, but she's a badass artist, and they have a comic book called Fuck Off Squad,
nice.
And it's like just the title alone, and they're badasses. They do conventions, and they are beasts. They fucking do a shit ton of conventions. They sell a lot of product. They push, and just business wise, they are something to be inspired by, as well as like Dave is always drawing, Nicole is always drawing. They just don't stop.
That's awesome.
And so when I step back, I'm just like, you want to make more sales? You want to be better at this? Look at what they're doing. Pay attention, or call them. So those are my top, 5/6.
Right on.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I know this. We haven't done this with you. The hot seat.
Oh God.
We give you 10 artists, and you just give your quick little assessment of them.
So you'll be fine.
What if I don't know them?
Don't say skip.
Okay.
Pass.
I mean, we've talked about most of them already.
Got it. All right.
But Rembrandt, what's your
I love Rembrandt. He is important. Even if you don't like what he does and you think that his subject matter is dull, he's incredibly important technically, historically, and the fact is, like, if you think you don't like Rembrandt, you're not fucking paying attention.
I know.
How dare you, sir?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that earlier when we were talking about how time changes things,
yeah,
it's like one of those things with Rembrandt is like the subject matter kind of has to, you have to give him a pass on because
it's not fair to it's not fair, but no, and even I guess I hear like subject matter wise there's a lot more to those paintings that like surface level, the symbolism in those paintings, like you're just like, oh shit, I didn't realize that was actually happening in this painting. There's one of them, it's the large one with like 20 figures, the night.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I think Night Watch.
Yeah, it's like the Night Watch. It's about a militia, right? But he is like making fun of people in that painting, which almost got him like killed, like it
Oh, really?
Decapitated.
We had
a funeral for a bird.
I know, exactly. But just that painting, like one dude's holding a chicken. And they're like, why the fuck is he holding a chicken? It's like, well, actually, funny story is. And so there's so much symbolism.
He used to fuck chickens.
I think he was like seen as a coward.
Oh, I see.
Huh.
I see. Like
that's cool.
Yeah. So
that saying goes that far back, huh?
I'm not sure. But it's just things like that where you're like, what the fuck? So anyways, what else we got?
John Singer Sargent. I know we talked to him before, but yeah.
Me mean the fact that like even though I was at that like Gaugin and Monet exhibit, I had to go
I had to
go stand in front of Sargent's paintings and take
room,
at least 7 fucking pictures. And the fact that the guy somehow knows how to use warm and cool colors right next to each other and make it like, oh God, it's so beautiful.
Exactly.
They got a new, they put up a new piece at the De Young of just, it's an Italian structure. It's just the columns and
I know which painting you're talking about.
And it's just burnt sienna and blue with some white. And it's just his range of that, like the tonal range, the heat range, just the temperature. It's just like, you motherfucker. Like, God damn it.
Right.
So yes, John Singer Sargent.
Next one, Van Gogh.
I love Vincent Van Gogh. Not because of his, well, I tried, but he wouldn't say it. No, I love him. It's once again the ability to take what you see how that inspires you, take that feeling and translate it onto the canvas. Like, for me, it doesn't get any better than that. You know, to actual raw, like, that man loved to paint, and he painted what he loved, which was, you know, nature and the world. And and the amount of paint, his technique, it's also like, you want to just, like, he didn't give a fuck. He wasn't following a trend. He just was doing, and he did it every day to just be something. And it's like, yeah, I can absolutely, like, understand that. So I think he's beautiful.
Awesome. Salvador Dali.
Oh, I want to like Salvador Dali, and I don't. And it's not because I don't think he's good. He's amazing. Technically, intellectually, he's absolutely amazing. It's why we're talking about him. But what he does doesn't speak to me.
Right.
The irony is that I deal with a lot of surreal imagery, but I think it's because technically how he paints is beautiful, it's amazing, and it feels emotionally flat.
Yeah.
Feels to me.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Like,
I think that's hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah. And so therefore I need
sir.
Yeah, thank you. I need more of who he is, not what he thinks in his work.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Picasso.
Oh, and Picasso is the exact opposite, you know, for me. In that, again, I want to like Picasso. I respect the shit out of that guy and what he did for the 20th century. I love Cubism, actually. And technically, that dude could do whatever he wanted to do. Again, I felt like, and I'm making an assumption, but that's pretty much what we're doing with art anyways, right? Is that I think Picasso felt he was more important than his artwork was. And he used his artwork to show how important he thought he was.
A real Picasso.
And and therefore, but I mean, that dude is a genius. He is probably the most important artist of the 20th century. But you know, when I step back, I'm like, it's more about you now than it is about your work.
Right.
You know? And that's, you know.
Picasso, more like pick asshole. Zing!
Who the fuck is this guy? The fact that he's like some radio jockey talking about fine artists. Right,
Frida Kahlo.
She is. Well, so if you have Picasso and you have Dali, you have Frida Kahlo, who's like, motherfuckers, like, you all can go jerk off. I'm going to make something real and authentic. While you're all stuck in your heads about theories, I'm going to make something that speaks about my culture, that speaks about me, speaks about being a woman, speaks about my relationship with Diego, speaks about real fucking life. You want to know what real life looks like? She fucking painted it. And not in like a reality way, but as in like, yeah, sometimes shit gets strange. Sometimes shit gets painful. Sometimes you find the joy in both of those moments. And I genuinely, when I look at her work, like, that's how it feels. The only downside is I wish she painted bigger. Actually, looking at her real paintings, they're like 9x12s, and you're like, God damn it, come on, go bigger, please, give me more. But I want to sit in front of your color in an intense way, but I don't get that, But no, I think as an artist, yeah, she's real. She's the real deal. And I think that's why, men wanted to be her and women wanted to sleep with her. So
that's probably the best argument I've heard for her work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Might as well.
That men want to be her and women want to sleep with her.
Well, that too. But no, all that stuff before that.
Yeah. You're killing this.
Thanks, man.
Rothko.
Oh, all right. So I love Mark Rothko. I know. When I looked over at you, Josh, when because you went, fuck that guy.
No,
Brother, this guy stinks!
I love Mark Rothko.
No, I don't mind Rothko.
It's funny. Emma, our friend in our art group,
I know.
fucking hates him. Like, it's like, fuck that guy. Fuck how much money he gets for his paintings. I think Rothko's important for latter 20th century artwork because intellectually, there are things about his color theory that were not explored on a scale that large. Maybe between one or two brushstrokes, you would see that, but not on a scale that becomes all-encompassing.
Right.
And that you sit in front of that work of art and you are wrapped up in it if you allow yourself to actually sit in front of it. And the optics of what it does to your eyes, how the colors change inside the painting because of the frequency that he's using, is incredibly intelligent. He is dismissed too easily because you can't find anything representational, therefore it must not mean anything. And the reality is it means something because it deals with the thing that 99.9 of human beings see, which is color, and how color creates an object. How color, there is no, like black and white. It's not the value, it's the tone of color and how that changes things. And then ultimately seeing that type of color and that thing, how does that make us feel? If I see a woman in a red dress versus a woman in a black dress, what kind of feeling will that evoke? And so him stripping away the symbolism and just focusing on the color and how does that color change and change your mood, I think is incredibly interesting. And that's why I feel like he doesn't always get the credit that he deserves, among more, like younger artists who haven't had time to sit down and actually like explore that. Yeah. And I mean, I was right there too. Like, fuck that guy. It's a big fucking orange square with a blue square on the bottom. Fuck him. And then as I get older and go like, you don't know shit about color. And he does. So you better sit down and learn something from him because you don't know a fucking thing, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never disliked Rothko, even when I was a little bratty kid.
Yeah.
And still a bratty adult, but yeah, he's always been one of like the abstract guys. I was like, oh, I like his stuff.
Yeah.
And I think scale is like a big part of it. The scale of
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
We've talked about scale before and how it can really draw the awe of artwork.
Absolutely.
And he, I think, accomplishes that well with his work.
Yeah. Scale goes into consideration with him. It's not big just to be big. It's big because it needs to be big.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe we could sum up half an hour of talk, but Jackson Pollack.
So I don't know if we've had the conversation before, like off the microphone, but I think Jackson Pollack is important. I think Jackson Pollack is important not because he was a great artist, but because of what he became as an artist and as a persona. His paintings are interesting in that they do open up the idea of seeing the artist and letting the artist be seen as opposed to the artist hiding and the work being important. The 20th century is all about the, rise of the individual. And younger and younger and younger, right? I mean, it's why in the 50s, corporations start to go like, hey, you know what? If we see teenagers as individuals, we can get more money from them because they have an incredible amount of buying power. So to ignore that sociological revolution that happens of being seen as an individual as opposed to like, nope, you're a painter, you're part of an atelier, or you're part of, union or whatever, your painter's union. I'm hiring you to do this portrait. Do the portrait. I don't give a fuck about who you really are. Do the portrait.
Right.
And so Pollack's hand being seen with his mark making as well as the layering, the space and time and the physicality of that, and they're not just weak little, marks. I mean, like when you stand in front of one of those things, and again, scale is important, there is an aggressive nature. I know that he tried to paint in the more traditional, like abstract ways of, the New York school, and it just didn't really work for him. And I think him being like, I'm going to just fucking fling this paint because I am who I am. And sometimes I'll dab it here. Sometimes I'll spread it around. Sometimes I'll just let it pool up. Is he my favorite? Fuck no. Like Helen Frankenthaler out of that whole group, I love her the most. She is fucking smart. She is conscientious of how color sits next to even blank canvas and the intention. And I know that Jackson Pollack had a lot of intention as well. The downside of it is it's like he's got the volume cranked up to fucking 10 on his paintings. And it's like, you are not a subtle human being by any means. So a lot of Jackson Pollack is like, ugh, I love heavy metal, but fuck, like turn it down. Give me some subtleties. It can't always be, super fast all the time. Can't believe it just came out of my mouth. And so that's the downside of Jackson Pollack. The popular Pollack. I've seen some unpopular stuff that's actually beautiful. I have a poster of his like in my studio where I'm like, this is an actually interesting portrait and an abstract thing floating next to each other. But
how dare you, sir?
I know, again. So yes.
Right. We apologize to our listeners for what he had to say about Jackson Pollack.
Did you just say beautiful paint, Steve? Get the f out of my house.
Shepard Fairey.
Oh, Shepard Fairey. Okay, so I like Shepard Fairey. And I like Shepard Fairey for all the non-fine art reasons. I like Shepard Fairey because I like Shepard Fairey because I like punk music. Not because like I found punk music and then I found it's because like that his punk aesthetic is the most interesting thing. And then he managed to make cool shit. And so he made cool ideas. I mean, he took two things and brought them together, Andre the Giant, like what the fuck, and then made him street art. Like that's amazing. And put it in places that were provocative and engaging and made you stop having your head down and put your head up. His design sensibilities are super strong. His color theory, not as strong, but design-wise and layout and symbolism, yeah, he's on it. And his message making, whether he's ripping off other people or collaborating or it's all his own, whatever he's using, yeah, I mean, he's like Andy Warhol. Like, do I like Andy Warhol? Not really. But the fact is, I just said Andy Warhol's name, and we all know who I'm talking about.
Sure.
Who?
Which means, well, he's a old white guy.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that guy.
But...
Old white guy?
Yeah, old white guy.
Okay, yeah.
One of millions. And so I think he's important. I like it because of the cool factor of like, that's a cool image. I like it. Does he move me emotionally? No. Do I want to actively go out and look at his work outside of just trying to figure out like if I need to make a poster? Not really. It's probably going to sound, I don't see a lot of him in the work. I just see a lot of like who Shepard Fairey really is as a human being. I don't see a lot of. I just see a lot of like attention getting. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Last one, Bob Ross.
Oh, so if you had asked me that question 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I would have laughed at you. So my students talk about Bob Ross a lot. The cultural phenomenon of that man is fascinating on its own. That my students say, sometimes I'll just put on the YouTube channel of Bob Ross while I'm doing my homework because that dude calms me down. And I would scoff at it first, and then I would sit back and go, like, the reason why Bob Ross is so popular now is because of the amount of trauma that people have to deal with in their lives. The fact that my students, on a subconscious level, have to wonder if they're going to get shot at today. Or on a conscious level, will they be picked on? Will they be bullied? Will their picture be put up on Snapchat and everybody will make fun of them? The fact is, like, even though there may be more jobs, people are still like, how the fuck can I afford to live here? And then you sit down and you watch this guy. And you could say, yeah, he paints the same shit every single fucking day. But the fact is, his dedication to be able to say, like, I can do this, you know, and I can do this, and I can bring some happiness and peace into people's lives through the expression of my joy. The dude fucking loved what he painted. Mm-hmm. He was not a complex, I mean, he loved nature. And it's like, let's just make this shit up. Is incredibly inspirational. I think him as a human being, this is one of the few times, like, stepping outside of the artwork and being like, that dude as a human being, or at least how he presented himself as a human being, is something I would love to strive for, you know, to have that sense of joy in the most simple things. Joy, genuine fucking joy. Like, I'm going to draw this cute, like, let's put a happy little tree right here. It's like, that dude was stoked when he could find a way to work a little guy in there, you know, or this almighty tree, or let's get this happy cloud, you know. And I get that it comes off as a shtick. The haircut's a shtick, and we all know that. But, like, no, that guy wasn't faking it. I think he really enjoyed doing it. And he enjoyed, you know, being on stage and making people happy. He had no idea that it would become what it became today. But he knew that he had his audience, and his audience loved him, and because of who he was and what he created. And I can't dismiss that at all. And then you step back and people are like, I'm just going to watch a Bob Ross video and just do a painting of his. I'm like, yeah. The moment he pulls out his palette knife and mixes up that titanium white with a little cerulean blue, and you start to put that, you know, snow cap on that mountain, you call me. Because you'll be crying, because that shit's fucking hard. And you don't even have any idea the delicate nature it takes to glide that thing across the canvas one way and then have it be more firm the other. Keep your edge tight, nice and tight, and still make it look like fucking snow. Like, what the fuck? That takes a lot of, like, practice. It's not something you can just do in a half an hour. Yeah, it takes years and years of practice. So
sure.
Anyways, so I don't know. I think as a human being, I like that guy. He puts a smile on my face. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, that was it, right?
Uh-huh.
There we go. I know.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks, Tony, for doing this.
Thanks, you guys. And for anybody listening, sorry we babbled on so long, but thanks for making it through.
If you're in Comic-Con San Diego.
Yeah. DD07. That's the Artist Alley 07. That's where I'll be.
Tony. Say what's up.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys.
Convince him that Pollack sucks for us.
Oh, don't get me wrong, man. You know how what I just went on about Bob Ross? I think the exact opposite of friggin', you know, like Jackson Pollack. You're a nice dude. Did not bring joy to my life. Right. I am con-marring the fuck out of you, sir.
And your Instagram is...
Oh, God. It's Tony_Guaraldi_Brown. If you just go Tony_GUAR, it'll come up because I'm the only Guaraldi-Brown.
You have to spell out underscore. It's not the symbol.
Underwear. Oh, God, that would be the worst handle. Thank you.
Is there anything else?
That's probably it.
For us, I mean, keep the ratings and reviews coming in.
Yes, that too. That as well.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you.
A good guy to hang out with.
Thanks.
This has been Waiting Dry. If you're still listening, fuck off.